Good evening and warm welcome to all the participants. We are thrilled, delighted to have Dr. Srikanth here. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Welcome.
All the participants join me in welcoming you warmly to this 194th conversation on WiseViews. What I'll do is quickly do a brief introduction of Dr. Srikanth, and then we'll start the conversation. So allow me to share my screen, please. So these are WiseViews leadership conversations, which we hold every Friday, and this is session number 194. We are going to talk about corporate career versus startup. Which path should I choose? And this is going to be led by Dr. Srikanth, and he is very much here. As I said, this is a 1 hour of a conversation. I take this opportunity to introduce Srikanth sir. He is a general partner with VenturEast and works closely with the VenturEast Proactive Funds portfolio to help them scale their business operations. 25 plus years of innovative software and entrepreneurial experience and 8 plus years in investments with a host of leading technology firms in India and the US. Prior to VenturEast, Dr. Srikanth was the worldwide head of corporate strategy and technology, and previously COO of Persistent Systems Private Limited. He was instrumental in establishing industry-leading practices in the areas of cloud computing, mobility, analytics, and collaborations, which today drive 50% of the company's revenues, and serviced marquee clients such as IBM, Microsoft, Force.com, Google, Rackspace, Yahoo, VMware, Wells Fargo, among many others. During his tenure, the company more than tripled its revenue and had a very successful public offering in April of 2010. Before Persistent, Dr. Srikanth founded Pretzel Logic, a mining software product services business, and over a 9-year period provided design, architecture, implementation, consulting expertise to companies like Sun, SGI, HP, and SAIC, registering triple-digit growth for 6 straight years and gaining recognition as one of the top 100 private companies in the Bay Area 3 years in a row. Very interesting, sir. His firm was acquired in 2001 by a BAE Systems Incorporation spin-off. Dr. Srikanth was also the CTO of HCL, responsible for delivery and all strategic technology initiatives, after which he transitioned to become the worldwide CTO for Cognizant. Dr. Srikanth was responsible for setting up and driving worldwide product development for International Decision Systems, a financial services product startup, which was eventually acquired by a large private equity firm. During his tenure at HP, he was part of the original team that architected and implemented SoftBench. Industry leaders such as IBM, CDC, Informix, and Honeywell Bull licensed this technology. And Dr. Srikanth has a BTech from IIT Madras and earned his MS and PhD in Computer Science and Information Sciences from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign. He has made innumerable contributions to conferences over the years and is also the holder of patents. He is an advisor at T-Hub. He is very popular there with all the startups. He is a visiting faculty at Virginia Tech and IIT Bhubaneswar, where his focus areas are cloud computing and software engineering. With this brief intro, I am very happy once again to welcome Sir. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us, Sir. 194 on you, Sir. Welcome. We will now start with, you can say a few words and then we'll start with questions, Sir.
No, I think it accurately sums my last 40 years. Thank you. And the only thing it doesn't kind of detail out is all the mistakes I made. And there were several. So hopefully you will be able to discuss that today. Because the world is changing, and I think this is a very poignant discussion today. Thank you.
Great, sir. Very, very pertinent topic for all of us. I request Dr. Prasad to start the cluster number 1 with questions. Over to you, Dr. Prasad. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rao. Thank you, sir, for giving us an opportunity on such a wonderful topic. Over the years, the interest in startups has increased, perhaps much more than we were, graduated and came out. And today it's quite spiraling. And on this occasion, the critical question always is for those who are already working and for those who are graduating is what to do, when to do, and what is the kind of trade-off implied there. So I'll start straight away, sir, and with the first question. And this is based on your experience. How did you make the journey from corporate career to being involved with startups as founder, mentor, investor? And in that context, what were the questions on your mind? How did you resolve them?
So I think for me, it was a very eye-opening journey when I did my MS and PhD in the US, because it was very different from the IIT standard education that I got here, which was basically training me to become an engineer and go pick up a job with either any of the manufacturing companies or any of the tooling companies, etc. But somehow I was missing something. When I went to the US, I think all the pieces connected together because everything was digital, everything was online, and I felt, that was what I truly wanted to do. So I took up computer science mainly because I wanted to do research and I actually wanted to be a prof, to be honest. Okay, so when I started the journey, but what tended to happen in the US is you get exposed to a lot of industry very early on as you're doing your research. So you get to meet a lot of people from outside, you get to work as an intern in these companies. And when I used to come back, I used to think, hey, my work can be better. My work can be a little bit more realistic. So right from a very early stage, I wanted to actually get out and prove something, whatever I was researching on, take it out, do something. So that was basically the motivation for me. And that actually took me away from academia, but took me into HP, Hewlett Packard, HP Labs, where I learned a lot because it was such a freewheeling environment. You could walk, wear shorts and come in. You could work till 12 midnight. You could go anywhere. You could keep interacting with really smart people. And so that changed my life. I said, I have to basically at some point in time do something which is mine, where I can drive something. So I think that was basically, it was not something which happened overnight, but I think the 5-6 years of grad school and a couple of years of work experience really actually said, okay, time to go out and take a risk. So by that time, I was already married. We were already parents of 2, and we already had a home mortgage and a lifestyle. So one of us had to give it up. So I really want to thank my wife because without her, it wouldn't have happened. So she's actually the more important one here.
Excellent, sir. You've also gone on to become an investor. And can you highlight, the differences in thinking and the issues involved between when you are an entrepreneur and when you're an investor?
Very interesting question. And I think I've gone over it multiple times before. But the key difference between being an entrepreneur and being an investor is the entrepreneur has very little data and very little time. And they have to think on their feet and they have to keep moving forward because every day is a fight for survival. Every day makes a difference. And you have to make decisions very, very quickly as compared to even mid-sized companies and large companies. Whereas as an investor, you're sitting on a pile of cash, and that pile of cash is given to you by your investors, and they trust you, which means you have to collect a lot of data. You have to be very careful, and you can't basically kind of trivialize the decision making of investment, right? So you have to make sure it's very rigid. There's a process followed. Yes, we might not pick all the winners, but we should not pick losers. That's the key, right? Because we are, at the end of the day, are fund managers. So here you get to say no quite often. And you get a lot of time and a lot of data compared to being an entrepreneur. And I'll tell you again, one quick thing, being an entrepreneur and an investor, I think entrepreneurship is always more fun, except I'm too old for it.
Fantastic, sir. I think you've compared entrepreneurship and investing and given us some insights there. We'll come back to the other two on which the main theme is. But before that, so there's a question on, there's been a lot of discussion about unemployment in India, more precisely economic growth without proportionate employment growth. In this, and you have various versions. In this context, what is your advice to those who are making policy for large organizations versus startups? So many policies are there.
Yeah, this is actually a very good question because I think the entire organizational structure will change. I'll tell you why. Because number one, there's the advent of technology. Number two, there's an advent for new skill sets. Number three, certain things are going to get obsoleted. Number four, the typical hierarchical organization of managers will not exist. It'll start becoming peer-to-peer, and people who actually contribute in this digital world are actually going to be recognized, right? It'll be all visible to everyone, hopefully. So that is the big sea change that even the educational institutions, the students, as well as employers or corporates need to be aware of, because the change is going to be huge and it's going to be very, very fast. So I think all I can say is we have to be very, very well prepared now, given where things are. So the policymakers should go back and basically start to connect the dots. What are the dots? how do you double the GDP of India? You double the GDP of India only through entrepreneurship and MSMEs, right? So what are the innovations you can do there? How can you bring the MSME growth factor improve? Because they were actually the backbone of India. And surprisingly, I was on a committee yesterday and someone gave me stats. This was a manufacturing subcommittee where we were looking at industry and academia alliances between the US and India. And a number was thrown up saying that 85% of the businesses in the US are MSMEs. And they have also suffered. And they've suffered for a variety of reasons. And I think that is one area where if we can come up with good policies, I think it'll have a huge impact, because then startup innovation and MSMEs can be tied together because they are natural partners. Large companies typically do not adopt new technologies very quickly. So that is one big area. If we make a change, I think your unemployment will be addressed. There will be growth in GDP. I'm hopeful. I've written many notes to the ministries. Hopefully they look at it.
Excellent, sir. I move on to the next query. You have seen a lot of entrepreneurs. Of course, you have been one yourself. And when does this entrepreneurship bug bite? I mean, what are the drivers, as you see, or kind of environmental factors which make this bite? It doesn't bite everyone, but it bites.
Yeah.
What
So
do
I
you
think there are two or three things that will kind of bite, in my opinion. One is a spark from inside. That spark from inside exists in most people. The whole idea is to create something new, do something new, learn something new. That spark is always there, right? And it's somehow we kind of have figured out a way through our education system to make that very dull. And so are the corporates, right? So unfortunately, that thing is extinguished even before it kind of becomes like a full kind of flame, right? Then there are other secondary factors. Can you take a risk? Are you the risk-taking type? Doesn't matter. I mean, if you don't make any money, can you kind of take that leap of faith? And do you have the support of your family? Because that's also very important. In my case, it was because I was a father of two kids and we had a home mortgage. I can't just dive off saying that I'm doing something cool. And then obviously, so those are two very, very important factors. And the third thing is basically the passion to not give up. You shouldn't have a plan B. If you're always a person who's playing safe, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'll go back. If that doesn't work out, I'll go back. Then you're not an entrepreneur. So these three things are, in my opinion, very, very important.
Fantastic, sir. Now, I'll come to this distinguishing between the corporate career and
Sure.
the startup path. Now, these characteristics that you mentioned, they could be there also in many of the guys in corporate world, but yet you don't see those shifts. So how do you differentiate between these two here?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that flame, the flame to be creative, to learn more, do more, only exists when you're young. Over a period of time in the corporate world, you do dull down. Unless you're part of a really exciting company. I'll give you one real world story and you will relate to it. So when I was actually still with HP, my good buddy from high school, Shantanu Narayan, was doing his first startup. So we were excited. We used to live next door to each other, pretty much very close. And each of us, and his older brother was a senior of mine at IIT Madras, and it was a pretty close, informal thing and all. Then suddenly one day he said, I'm giving up, I'm going off, and I'm joining this company called Adobe. So I looked at it. It's a small company. He said, you should also come. I said, but by that time, that flame of wanting to do something on my own had already kind of. So I said, no. Okay. So now what happened to Shantanu? He actually played the corporate game very, very well, but he was on top of a company which was also growing. Please understand, it was not a very big company. So for him, that ride was a fantastic ride in terms of almost taking the company from a very small size all the way to a powerhouse where it is. So he got the best of both worlds. And I probably could have listened to him, but we are still good buddies. We still meet up once in a while. But so I would say normally a corporate role will dull you if it's a big company, because they don't have the ability to innovate anymore, and they have to bow down to public market pressures and have to show profitability, have to show cost cuts. So there is no innovation. There is some little bit that's happening, which I'm very happy to note. I think even Dr. Rao had mentioned earlier that most of these larger companies have started to create their own hands-on R&D lab called Incubation Center, which is pretty good, where they do invite startups, and this is happening. They do have internships. It's happening. But is it enough? It's very, very limited. So if you want to kind of really be sparked, learn something really quick, understand what's going on with tech, then startups is always, I'm not talking very early stage startups, I'm talking about Series C, Series D, Series E startups are a great place to actually learn because they're almost like MSMEs.
I think, sir, you also brought out the point that those who were in startups can take organizations to many levels, infusing that sort of DNA you mentioned, Shantanu Narayan.
Yes, absolutely. But there you have to be lucky. You should get that size company and you should be empowered. Secondly, which he was. Third is, it was an exciting product company which scales not just on people, but it scales on IP and R&D and research. They did a lot of cool stuff. I do know the person who actually joined him as VP of engineering. He's also a good friend of mine. He also had a good time at Adobe. But it's a beautiful kind of wealth creation story. If you look at the stock itself, it's one of the number one stocks from the 1980s till now. So actually, those things really spark you because you see an Intuit happening in front of you, you see an Adobe happening in front of you, you see a Sun happening in front of you, you run into Apple founders. Only that happens only in the valley. It doesn't happen, unfortunately, here.
Now that you've discussed this, sir, there is an associated question which I have, and you've been in Persistent also, and very much top of the ranks. What is the difference between the founder and the CEO, CO?
Okay, again, a fantastic question. I've had the opportunity of knowing at least two founder CEOs. One is Dr. Shiv Nadar and one is Dr. Anand Deshpande. And these were, in one case, there was some advisory input at the CEO level as well as a skipped level. I was reporting into someone who's reporting into him, but it was a fairly close thing. And with Anand, I was a COO, he was a CEO. So the difference is, at HCL, there was clearly Shiv was the CEO, right? So I came after the fact. I was not there when he was a founder and it was early days, right? So to me, I always looked up to him as Mr. Shiv Nadar. And so there was a little bit of that, but he would always give me the opportunity because he felt that if I had a good idea, speak your mind. So that spark never went out. That's basically what kind of gave birth to HCL, right? So that is what a founder CEO can do if he's rightly aligned. Similar to that, Anand was great. He had a vision. He needed someone who could come and kind of drive operations for him, scale it up, while the person should also be a techie. So that was me because I could do both the CEO, CTO role and also some amount of sales and marketing because I had done my own company. So I think we balanced each other well. In fact, we ran the company without a real sales head for about a year pre-IPO, and we still grew. So it was quite an exciting time. And he's also pretty open in terms of exchanging views. We would have disagreements. One disagreement I remember, I said, give me 500K and I will kind of create an IP licensing business for you. He was unhappy, but he gave it. And that actually happened. The second big decision was I said, establish something in Hyderabad. He says, no, why Hyderabad? I said, I'm telling you, listen to me. And we actually established Persistent Hyderabad in 2008. And today it's the second largest development center for Persistent. They do a lot of cool work from here.
I think great insights, sir, both with respect to what CEOs can be and how they let others flourish, given the parameters of what they do. Sir, next question is about what kind of experience should a student gather before taking a plunge into a startup? I mean, the steps which guide the student who are in a corporate career and and they have it on their mind. So what would you suggest there?
So if you're a fresh student and you want to do a startup, I think go spend some time in an incubator for some time and basically shadow some startups, understand what's happening, what are the challenges, because you can't just skip and just dive into the pool straight away. I think you need at least a couple of years experience. Lots of things are happening, and this will also make you more aware in terms of when you do your startup, you're aware of a few things and you also have a network whom you can rely on. So that's basically the main piece of advice. The corporate guys are slightly different. What I urge the corporate guys is to take a sabbatical. Take a sabbatical into, say, basically, again, and what I call a venture studio, where they're looking for experienced people to work on ideas. And these venture studios do provide a stipend. Maybe it's not as much as their salary, but hey, I mean, you want to make the change, so you should be prepared for a salary cut and go there for a couple of years, work on something exciting, and then maybe that becomes a startup. You've taken a chance, but it's a little bit less risky. because your income is not going to zero. So that we are encouraging the central government to start giving some tax incentives to corporates who can actually kind of contribute to venture studios, because that's a great place to actually kind of rekindle that flame, which I was talking to you earlier, which sometimes gets killed, right? But it never dies. It gets killed, but it never dies. So you can rekindle it.
So to what extent do these venture studios exist in Indian organization? I mean, some kind of cultural percentages, what do you think is there right now?
Very few, but I'll kind of name a few. We have one inside T Hub called Biome, the Biome Studio. We have another venture studio which is set up for sustainability in IIT Madras. We are thinking of doing a venture studio in the IIT Madras Research Park. I don't know whether it will work out or not, but because you still need funds for it, right? And Antler. Antler Advisory is an investment firm which is run by a junior of mine called Rajiv Srivats. They have a venture studio kind of a concept. And I think some corporates like in the real estate tech are also trying to create these studios. But in terms of numbers, it's very, very few today.
Excellent idea, sir. Excellent idea. I'll close with one question and then hand it back to Professor Rao. In the context of choosing between startup and a job, and being in a job, what is the role of entrepreneurship? I mean, that also is one way in which this whole agenda can be furthered.
No, I know, but I think, see, when you're young, right, when you're just fresh out of college, unless you're extremely lucky, okay, you don't know what you want to do, and you don't know why you want to do it, right? So I always tell people that join some place where you can learn if you want to kind of build your own enterprise. If you want to build a career in a corporate, that's a different thing. Two totally different skill sets. You might still have a spark in you, but you'll say, okay, I don't want to kind of ignite that spark till 15 years later, maybe. So I think it's a personal decision, but I think if you have that flame, right, which you can't doubt, you're better off going and joining a later stage startup. You'll learn a lot.
Fine, sir. And how do you think students are responding to this sort of an idea? Are they actually going in at that age? You want to do something, and then do they do that?
I basically am very surprised with students, because when I was setting up the computer science program at IIT Bombay, and then I've taught, they actually take a lot of initiatives. They have so many activity clubs, they're doing things, they're doing internships, they're going abroad. I mean, they have access to a lot of material. I think where we are lacking is, I think our entire academic setup needs to change. And I think even the pedagogy needs to be updated to some extent. And also corporate needs to come into academia, and academia needs to go into corporate. I think the whole thing should be a continuum. Today, it's very discrete. When it's discrete, things can get broken very quickly if there's a disruption due to technology. So I think if we can promote that, I think it'll be good for the students, it'll be good for faculty, it'll be good for universities, it'll be good for the corporates, and most importantly, it'll be good for the parents, because they also feel happy that the kid is engaged and contributing, right?
I think in a way you're talking about your IIT Madras experience as a graduate and what you saw when you went abroad, and that kind of, in a way that, yeah.
If you look at it, then that whole yearning in me has given rise to 6 or 7 companies. One being Aether Energy, the other one being MediBuddy, third one being AI Bono, fourth one being Hyperverge, fifth one being Geotag. And then, of course, I mean, we founded the IIT Madras Entrepreneurs Group, and I had written a book called The IITM Nexus. So we've actually kind of produced a lot of winners from there, because that environment helped, right? So at the end of the day, the environment is very important. That's why I was talking about the valley, right? Why is it the valley produces this, right? Because there's this constant good interaction going on. And Hyderabad has definitely a huge potential, especially ICFAI.
So I think what we are coming up at is the major thing is that environmental part and what educational institutions can do and others can do to kind of foster that spark, so that it gives rise to, it is more parenting, and not, if not done directly, there is a lot of parenting going on, and then you have multiple companies coming out of that.
That's right, absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful insights. I hand it back to Professor Rao.
Thank you, Dr. Prasad. Sir, it's a great conversation that's going on. And I thought I'll just pause here to acknowledge the fact that some of the leaders who have joined around the screen are from industries like media, technology, BFSI, and of course, academia. I welcome all of them who have joined from places like Gurgaon, Bangalore, Mumbai, and of course Hyderabad and other cities, Chennai, and few other cities down south. Thank you so much for your time on Friday evening, members. I'm sure you are actually lapping it up. The conversation was fantastic, and it couldn't have been better with Dr. Srikanth around. I'm going to ask a few more questions. Sir, the first question is based on your experience of looking at various startups in India and abroad, what are those important key skills that the colleges here are not teaching the future founders?
See, I think it's a good question, but I don't know if it's a responsibility of colleges to teach that, right? I think it's a broader question. I think the environment does not support it, even if the college has a good program, right? Unless they're able to go meet some ex-founders, they go and meet some technologists, they go meet some professors, right? And there's a free flow of bi-directional information. It's going to be difficult to do so because I'm sure you have an entrepreneurship degree, so does IIT Hyderabad, but you can't teach entrepreneurship, in my opinion. It has to be something very, very different.
But is there anything that the college can do? What are the 2-3 things that the college should always do, apart from the system that they should borrow from corporate and corporate should borrow from academia, which you already mentioned? Other than that, anything specific?
I basically think a college can do a lot, because if you create your own incubation and innovation hub, which is sponsored by the corporates, where like there are live projects going on, and students actually kind of get some credits and some stipend for working on some really cool stuff, I think that will be a stepping stone. Today, what happens is everything is discrete. It's broken. You get a grant, then you put it somewhere else, and someone else is managing it. The whole thing is kind of very, very inefficient, right? Whereas a private institution can make it very streamlined compared to the government institutions.
So also we wanted to, as the related question is, wanted to understand the differences in the ecosystem compared to, say, Silicon Valley, where it has given rise to many startups. Institutions also have played an important role. The whole ecosystem has actually done. So what are the differences in the ecosystem that you see between that and the ecosystem that we have out here? Although our numbers are growing up, we are doing superbly fine, as you have given an optimistic statement in the beginning. But what are the key differences and what are the things that we need to do so that we are step up at least in the near future?
So I think fundamentally we have not understood innovation. I think we set up institutions, but we don't understand innovation. And innovation can happen anywhere. It doesn't have to be a tech innovation. So what is great about the US is innovation happens. Even that guy who you've gone to, you had mocktails, right? And some mocktails will have this umbrella like matchstick, which they put. That's also an innovation. And that guy made few hundred million by just that, right? So I think in our situation, we have forgotten that, and I'm hoping that the next generation actually starts focusing on creating something new, creating something together, creating something online, creating something collaboratively. Once that happens, then you get this network effect, which is like the valley. Today, what happens is something will happen in ICFAI, something will happen in IIT Hyderabad, something will happen in IIIT. I see this myself because I've been involved with quite a few of these institutions, right? But they're all very discrete. They're not connected. And if we connect them and there's good flow of ideas and we make it open, there's innovation, then the projects become interesting, even the internships become interesting. And the students start to understand that there is a purpose to my education, there is a purpose to my career. Because today, I mean, it's very discrete. You do 4 years and somewhere you get counseling, somewhere you get placed. After you get placed, it's another 2-year cycle anyway in corporates. So in a way, you're doing a degree, but that degree is based on 2 years of time. So all of that, if we remove and make it interesting and focus on innovation, I think it'll be good. Because here we become very traditional and hierarchical.
So the two principal differences is to understand innovation and set out to create something. That is one. Second is the setup and the structure is more hierarchical here. I think probably that these are the two takeaways.
Yeah, I'll give you some examples. I mean, I don't want to.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
But I'll take one example of my own alma mater. Some of the processes that they follow are still rigid. They've been followed since 1959. So I question it. Okay, I mean, I love my alma mater, but I still question it. And I ask questions. Maybe sometimes it's embarrassing, but unless we do, all of us do, it won't change.
So the next question is more from the student point of view. We have a few students also who are joining on the Facebook Live. let me ask one on their behalf, or something that generally is for them to decide around placement time. Let's say that they get offers from, I'm just using this company's name just like that.
Sure.
Let's say they get offers from, say, Infosys versus a new age startup like Zepto or a Cred. Okay. How should they think about which culture suits them better?
Well, if you were to ask me today, because things are changing very, very rapidly, if you get the opportunity to learn more in a company like Zepto, please go and do that, because you will learn next generation supply chain, you will learn next generation logistics, you will learn a lot of cool things which are happening on the floor, how to manage it in case you want to get into those kind of businesses, right? Or do something. Now, what happens in the case of Infosys is you'll have to do time, because that model they have not changed yet. So you will be on the bench, then you'll be trained for a year and a half, 2 years, whatever. Then after that, you'll get placed in a project and you'll be doing a small part of the project. I think initially you'll be only testing stuff, doing some, then you'll be able to fix something. Then after 2-3 years, you'll get bored and you'll want to go on to something else. But then you can only do software. Then you'll say you'll take a break and you'll go and do an MBA. Then you do an MBA, then you come back and you're slightly confused whether you should do your own startup or you should go back to a large corp. Most likely you'll end up going to a large corp. I'm talking about the majority of the people, how they make decisions. And then it becomes basically a waiting game, right? You have to just luck out. But if you make the change at the right time, which is learn, and at the right time make the change, jump out and do something cool. Good example is the founders of Big Basket. They were not young. Big Basket happened when they were well in their 50s. And I was also in my 50s as an investor or part of the investment team. They knew everything. They learned everything.
Great, great.
And you contrast it to Aether, they were just in school. They were in third year when I met them. Two totally different journeys.
Great. Sharp response. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. The other two questions that I wanted to ask you are about the realities of our society. Okay. Many Indian families, the steady corporate job is a big first choice, even now. Okay. How can someone follow their passion without upsetting family expectations? Because this is the first hurdle that the kids and the young students and freshers will have to beat. So, any tips on that?
I think there's no tips, because if your home environment is not supportive, you should not do it, is my advice, because you'll put a lot of pressure on yourself. Doing a startup is not easy. You need everyone's support. You don't need criticism. Like, for example, when I did my first startup, okay, I'll give you a small story. So my dad in the IAS, I want to play cricket. I get into IIT, he said, don't come home. I go to IIT. After 5 years, he didn't know which branch I was in. Then when I'm getting ready to graduate, he says, write the IAS. So I wrote it. But I said, I'm not going to join. I took off. Okay. So I'm saying so that kind of parenting is gone now. Parents are much more friends of their kids now. So early on, I think if they start supporting the child, I mean, that's how great sports people happen. That's how great, I mean, there's a lot of examples in India also, right? And so I think it starts at home. If that doesn't exist at home, then what happens is you've never got that support. And then you will also not look for support, or you not look for inputs, because running a startup as a CEO is a lonely game. You need that mental support. You need at least someone to bounce ideas off. That's very important. If that doesn't exist and you've not been exposed to it, then be careful.
Be careful. It's better to have family support. And if you don't have, be careful. Yeah. Thank you, sir. The other related question that I was trying to ask was, how is the situation outside bigger cities? For example, do you think that people from smaller cities in India can have a good chance to build startups, or it is harder outside these cities?
I basically think the classic startup story has been overrated. You come up with an idea, keep getting funded and all that. I basically think with a smaller amount of capital, if you have an MSME focused fund, there will be a lot of good entrepreneurs coming out of the second tier, third tier, fourth tier cities, even villages. With the digital infrastructure and the payment infrastructure, why do you need anything? You can actually transform your whole thing there only. In fact, if they transform the education, the power requirements, the irrigation, the agriculture there, and make it kind of very friendly for industries to set up, then I think it'll happen. But what happens in our country is everything is discreet. You have to take this government's permission, someone's permission, this permission, everything is broken, right? So you can never recreate it very quickly unless you kind of create a special zone. That's the problem with us. We love creating special zones.
So essentially, yes, if you look around in your tier 2, tier 3 towns, there are a lot of problems which we can identify and solve. And there's a greater chance of becoming an entrepreneur if you focus on that. Of course, there are some challenges given the pace at which things move in terms of approvals. It is one thing to say that approvals in cities and non-cities like tier 2 and tier 3 would be equally difficult if it was difficult. But otherwise, if you identify the problem and try and look around what kind of
So
things
I think it's a system, right,
system.
Dr. Rao? Because what happens is we think of India and startups as urban.
Yeah.
Okay, if we start thinking as India for India, and come up with policies to make things easy, even to get a loan, get something, capex. There are startups trying to solve that problem, but poor guys, what can they do? They run into these government roadblocks everywhere, right? Oh, what is this person doing? What is that person doing? So the government itself needs to kind of look at themselves. How do I make us more efficient and improve? Only goal should be doubling our per capita GDP. That's the only hope for India, because we have such a large population to support.
India for Indians. That's the keyword.
Yeah, because there's lots of things to be done, as you said.
Amazing. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you do borrow ideas from outside, but there are lots of things you can do inside also.
At this point, what I'll do is I'll request the members in the audience to raise their hand in case they have any question. We'll open the mic. You can directly talk to sir. But before that, I'll ask questions. In the meantime, you can raise your hands. The question that I have is that we have a fairly good emerging ecosystem for startups. Startup entrepreneurial system is very good in India. But there are certain cases where you have overzealous valuations happening, and recent examples of various companies that we have seen, including Blue Smart and before that as well. What's your advice to us in terms of, because you are not just an entrepreneur, but you're also on the venture fund, and you're looking at it from various angles, and therefore some advice for different stakeholders in this ecosystem can come from you, sir.
Yeah, I think the most important thing I would say is please check the founders' intellectual honesty and integrity, right? Because anyone who does these kind of things has a history of doing it, okay? And given that you can actually do some really good kind of background checks, I think that's one thing that I tell all my fellow investors to do it. And for me, I spent 18 months with the startup just to kind of study how they react to different situations, right? So that I'm slightly different because I look at it from an entrepreneur's perspective and I say, okay, how do they react? And then I start feeling comfortable. Others need to check other things, but you have to leave no stone unturned. As I told you earlier on, it's better to miss a big investment rather than make a wrong investment, because our LPs look to us as fund managers and advisors. So you have to have the depth. So you have to do your financial due diligence. You have to basically do all the background checks. You have to make sure employment history is validated. You have to make sure the degrees are validated. You have to make sure you talk to the person's boss, other co-employees, whatever you can. And if there are customers that he claims to have, talk to the customers, see if there's value proposition. So a lot of things you have to do. Otherwise, I mean, everyone thinks it's easy. Once big things happen, then everyone starts to look good. But if bad things happen, everyone starts to look bad, right?
So there's one related interesting question that has come up, and that is, there are many who pursue startup path because of various reasons, and which may not be the right reasons for some of them. From your experience, could you actually flag such wrong reasons? What makes them actually pursue the startup path?
I mean, first thing is you have to ask yourself the question why. You ask yourself the question why 5 times. And if your answer is consistently the same thing, that means you're on to something. If your answer is different things at different times, that means it's not a good idea. The second thing is you want to emulate something without understanding the real context. I'll give you an example. Everyone thinks that Uber and Ola are the same, okay? But they're not the same. Today, they are the same. But yesterday, if you look at Uber, its main reason was shared economy. And why was it shared economy? Because 73% of the US owned vehicles, and the utilization of these vehicles was only 10%. And the US, it's a little bit more people own vehicles. India, only 3% or 4% of the population own vehicles, four-wheelers. So they are not going to be renting it out, right?
Right.
So it's a cab, guys. So Ola came at it from an aggregation of operators, fleet operators, cabs, etc., and made it. Uber came from shared economy and then realized that India is not a shared economy. So they had to become a cab operator. So today, both of them in the India context are the same. So that's just one example.
So what I'll do is I'll allow the participants to speak to you.
Sure.
I'm opening the mic to Miss Meghna. Miss Meghna, go ahead, please.
Hi, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Sir, I'm a law student. I study BBLLB in ICFAI. So I feel very honored to attend this conference and the previous one in T-Hub. It was very insightful, honestly. My doubt is that there's a clear difference, like there's a clear gap between planning and execution. And the execution, this is where T-Hub helps us. The problem which I feel like, and which most of my friends feel like, is that our ideas are messed up and we are unable to figure out what to do. Honestly, it's like we do have innovative ideas, but we are scared because you know how fast the world is growing. Like it can be the technology, it can be anything. We feel like the moment we launch it, maybe someone else might surpass us. So
So,
what do you suggest actually?
so what are you scared of? That the world is moving faster than you?
Sir, I feel like we are not upgraded enough. I mean, I see other university kids and I feel like we are
Got
not
it.
enough and all.
No, got it. Got it. That's exactly what I was trying to tell Professor Rao earlier, that I think the education system has to change. You have to actually bring industry into the academic world, and you have to take the academic world into the industry. Then what happens is that there's continuum. You're learning. And then you're able to kind of see, okay, these things are happening, so I better upgrade my skills or better learn this. And you have access to those resources because you get continuous feedback. Today, it's very discrete, right? So I'm going to ask you one question, Meghana. What did you learn in your first standard and what did you learn in your third standard?
Sir, how to write and basics.
So the first 6 years, why do you need to have first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth?
To improve our skills.
Yes. So what I'm saying is, if you were able to kind of provide certain other things very early into the curricula, right? Where you get to play with innovative things, you get to kind of build innovative things, you're doing things, then your whole perspective of actually learning changes quite quickly. So if it has to start from school, home, college, everywhere, all the way to industry, there has to actually basically be some kind of a connectivity where you are learning and you're basically enhancing yourself. And then when you do land a job, you feel that you're as good as someone else. But it has to happen continuously. So today we have a very discrete education system. That's the only issue. And hopefully it'll change.
Yes, sir. Can I ask one more question if you don't mind?
Go ahead.
Sir, if you were in our position currently, I mean, you know the resources we have. We have T-Hub that can help us, and we have our great professors who actually guide us and all. But the problem is, what are the skills that you would actually look for? Is it like negotiation or communication skills in specific? Or what would you actually recommend a student to go in? There might be multiple paths, but I want your recommendation, sir.
So let's take law, for example. You're studying law, right?
Yes, sir.
A lot of law is based on precedents, right? Especially before, and of course, certain decisions, right? Hallmark decisions.
Yes, sir.
If you were actually trying to become a better lawyer and you're going to be a corporate lawyer and you're going to be a litigation corporate lawyer, then you can actually start doing a lot of things with the tools which are out there. Like you can start querying, getting information, making your notes, and really getting prepared, right? Because that's what someone who's hiring you is looking for, that initiative. Is the person someone who also thinks and does, or is just a doer? So you should be the thinker and doer, right? You should be the researcher and doer, because law actually today, if you look at it, is very, very broken, right? If you just study what's happening in the courts and why it's getting backed up. But a lot of it can be changed using technology and next generation folks like you, where a lot of things can actually free up because the prep work, etc., for any kind of legal situation is a lot of search, right?
Yes, sir.
Great. Great, Meghna. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we'll move to Mr. Amit Chaturvedi. Please come up with your question.
Good evening, Sudhakar sir and Dr. Srikanth. It was a great pleasure listening to both of you, and the insights were really wonderful. I am Amit Chaturvedi, working as an assistant professor at ICFAI University, Jharkhand. Sir, actually, I have come across many questions from the student, but one of the most prominent question they have asked me in the recent past is, sir, we have the resources, we have the money, but today we have one idea about entrepreneurship. The very next day we come up with another idea in the startup, and we get jolted and confused with what to do and what not to do. Is it going in the right direction or is not going in the right direction? Or will it be better that if we switch from one startup to another in a given period of time if we don't find it going successfully well? Thank you.
Yeah, it's kind of a long-winded question, but the answer is very, very simple. I think
Yes.
if you, as I said earlier, if you ask yourself the question, why 5 times? If the answer to each of the times is different, right?
Okay.
Do the startup.
Okay, sir.
Right.
So that first clarity has to be there. Second, it's very important that you need to also be aware if something else is happening around you.
Yes, sir.
Are there other startups like that? Have other people face challenges? So you need to have a small network to kind of get some feedback. That is not happening. So if you're thinking in isolation and you say, yeah, 3 guys get together and say, we're going to come up with the next best toothpaste, that'll actually clear all teeth as well as gum problems. That's okay. But you ask yourself why first. And then the how comes, right? So
Yes, sir.
if you're, so maybe what's missing is someone to guide them very early on, to keep on asking them why, right? And poking holes, still some clarity emerges. Then I think they will do well.
Okay, sir.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Professor Amit. Thanks for joining, and all of you who joined from Ranchi. Good. I want to also make a mention here that we are joined by the Chancellor of ICFAI University, Jharkhand. We are also joined by Professor Mahendra Reddy, who is the distinguished advisor. In case they have any questions, they can also ask. So please feel free to raise your hand, sir. I'll open the mic for you. In the meantime, I'll take the question from Mr. Vishwanathan. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Srikanth Sundararajan, sir, and good evening, Dr. Sudhakar, sir. And I am not seeing the Dr. R. Prasad, sir. All of you, good evening. Very welcome to this because it is really a tough question to become an entrepreneur in the present status, because all the students are confused. My question is that simple way, as you have earlier told, parental guidance is mostly required. So the student and the boy who has started his startups failed two to three times continuously. And now he is afraid of going for this again and again. But the parental guidance has made him to start again, come back with a good idea and do it better way. First question, what they are saying, failures are the stepping stones for success. Second, they have given that nothing succeeds like a success. What is your advice for the students, those who wanted to become an entrepreneur and with the startups?
My thing is simple. If the bug of entrepreneurship is in you, then go join a Series C, Series D startup. Learn a lot for the first 2 years before you jump out, right? And make sure you ask yourself the question, why 5 times? It has to be consistent. And in those 2 years, you learn enough and you create your own network. So I'm asking you to be practical because the economy is not doing that great. The amount of liquidity in the market is also slowing down. I don't want to be spreading some bad news, but essentially, we as investors know it's becoming more difficult to raise capital and deploy capital or invest capital because there is going to be a little bit of conservatism given the global issues, right? So I think it's good to go join another startup, learn a lot, then ask yourself those questions. Obviously, spend some time with your parents and the immediate family, depending on the situation, and then take a calculated call. But whatever you're building, make sure that you don't have a plan B. Once you've jumped, just go for it.
No, my question is that whenever a startup is started or any business is started, nowadays I am a chartered accountant.
Yes.
We say that there should be an exit plan. And I always say there should not be an exit plan. You have to be succeed in that business. So
Exactly.
my question is, your answer has given it properly. And nowadays, I almost encourages the people that you go for it, study like anything, and make yourself confident to get into the business. Because it is not the out of state to tell them, most of the Marwadis children, they are successful. Why not others?
No, I think you see, for example, if I were to really think about ICFAI, you have 11 campuses, 7 universities. I'm not too sure, but essentially you have a section in the MBA and the BBA, at least students, where they are basically second generation entrepreneurs. They come from first generation business families. So my thought process was, why can't you actually kind of get them and really kind of get them exposed to doing a lot of things, innovation itself, and they will support the university because you have a huge alumni strength and you have support of their parents to make them join their business.
Thank you very much. I think you also joined with ICFAI, with a T Hub and other things. So we are all one family and we can do that one. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for giving the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Sir, one perspective we wanted to actually learn or pick up from you is that we've been talking about the change and the fast-paced change that is hitting all of us. How is the leadership? What is the changing phase of leadership, especially in the tech-first world? There are many startups, many businesses which are tech-first now. So, what is the leadership like it is right now compared to a few years back or say a decade back?
Well, the leadership is definitely changing to be what it should. As I told you, for a while we were only selling bodies and services and basically had a hierarchical kind of a view of the world. Today, the leaders have to be innovators, they have to be thinkers, they have to leverage tech, they have to basically be able to be good mentors, they have to work with small teams and drive things very quickly. So it's no longer the old world. And I think it's almost mandatory that the industry and the academia actually kind of collaborate and create programs like this on a continuous basis because things are changing and you have to take decisions very quickly. If you're a small company or a large company, things are changing very, very fast.
Great, great. I think that's a lesson for all of us. Are we prepared for this fast changing world, both at the entry level as well as at the leadership level? Because this question is pertinent for us, given the continuum that we have. We have some of the alumni who are at the leadership level. We have students who are at the startup and fresher level. And we also have to gear up our leadership accordingly to share the inputs and borrow significantly from the industry.
That's right.
There
So
are certain...
I'll give you one example, which again is my alma mater. I think today the strength of IIT Madras is its alumni. I mean, initially they were products. They went to the US. They became entrepreneurs. They basically became. I'm talking about IITs in general, but IIT Madras in particular, I know, and they keep coming back and giving back. So we've been involved with the Tenet Fund with Professor Ashok Jhunjhunwala. We've been involved with IIT Madras Research Park. As I told you, I've been mentoring a bunch of IIT Madras entrepreneurs. Ather actually just went IPO 1 week ago, even though it was a muted IPO, but I think they will do well. I think if you can create that inside ICFAI itself, where it's basically what is called a circular kind of a system where your alum are in strong position, they come and start projects, and then they come and teach, then they interact. I think the whole thing has to that is basically what the Silicon Valley effect is. I think you have to create that.
I think we should work on it and actually unlock the potential of alumni that we can bring to the university, to the institution. As you were some time back saying, sir, we have a large system, a fairly large system. We have 11 universities and then 9 business schools, 9 law schools and 7 tech schools. That's pretty large across, say, 20 cities in the country. And if we can put this together and create a system where we can learn from the alumni and also benefit the current students and future students, that will be a fantastic thing. We will borrow from your ideas very soon, sir, and we are working together already. So in a couple of occasions, I'd see you talking.
Yeah, I think if the board is willing and they take a long-term perspective,
Right.
I'm sure you can do it.
Right. We need people like you to actually, create some structures and, a more amenable systems actually to make this happen. So one is
I'm
to
there
dream.
always there to help, as I am helping us. Some folks at IIT Bombay, IIT Madras, IIIT Hyderabad, T-Hub. So I'm always there.
Yes.
I think if it is structured where I can contribute, that will be better. But I leave that to wise counsel.
Fair enough, sir. Fair enough. Thank you. We have Dr. T.R.K. Rao raising his hand. He's the Chancellor of ICFAI University, Jharkhand, and they have shown a lot of interest in this topic. And in the way you have spoken and given examples, a lot of people actually are there, both on Zoom as well as on Facebook Live. I'll request Dr. T.R.K. Rao to ask the question. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Srikanth. Am I audible?
Yes. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Prasad and Sudhakar. See, sir, I have battling with one issue. In my university, there are young minds streaming into MBA stream, BBA stream, and they also have the spark to do something. But we have some dinosaurs sitting in UGC, and some old regulations still force me to conduct certain courses. These courses can be done differently also. There's no need to put a resource person there and teach them, and all that can be done. Left to myself, I would have put in a 5-day week, 3 days, I'll put my students in the industry, go work there in different functions, come back, and these things can be taught differently. But that kind of flexibility is not being given through the regulatory framework. This is one issue which I'm battling with. I did it in a very minuscule manner when I was heading ICFAI School of Marketing Studies, but that was not under UGC regulations at that time. So I had the freedom to do that. It was a PGPM program. So in PGPM programs, neither AICTE nor UGC will come in the way. But when I come to a formal university, I need to show and build a record that this many hours have been conducted, this many credits have been given, which I think is slightly outmoded given the fast changing technology landscape and the kind of market requirements that they expect from the university students who are coming out of the university. I'm just sharing this to bounce this question to you so that what are your thoughts on it?
I think it's good. So again, I just want to preface this with saying that these are my thoughts. And I also want to kind of tell Dr. Rao that I was on basically the TICPEP committee. I was also on the national committee with Professor Ashok Jhanjhanwala when Dr. Pallam Raju was the MHRD minister. And I actually come back with a kind of feedback which said, why do you need all of this information? You need to make it a lot more flexible, and you need to basically kind of reduce the hours of actual traditional teaching and basically bring in the vision of ITIs and the technology schools together so that everything becomes like a loop. We had written to them and also said, involve parents, involve the industry. So a lot of inputs went, and then obviously they must have taken inputs from many more people. And what NEP 2020 was basically almost like a SOX where everything was put in. So it's very difficult to they've kept the old, they've introduced some new. So it's very difficult to kind of administer, because I'm on the board of governing body of a couple of universities myself. And it is kind of annoying. But the point is, that's how India is set up. So unless I think all the vice chancellors actually go together and represent their view properly to Dharmendra Pradhan ji and the new education secretary and AICT, because they are known people, I'm sure they'll be open, but the representation is not strong enough. That's what I feel. But you're absolutely right. We need to change, and if you don't change, it'll actually lead to a lot of unhappiness with students. I'm telling you.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Professor Prasad, you have any left out question that you want to now bring in? Then we'll close it with that.
Sir, I think it builds on the question that has been asked earlier, and particularly by Dr. T.R. Rao. How do you get out of the way? I mean, in a way, that's what the point which comes to my mind. How do educational institutions get out of the way? Today, you have to do 94 credits, and everyone is busy doing those credits. And the mindset of the faculty members is also that. And then you go after them saying you publish. Certainly, you can publish, but the way in which you publish, perhaps it is from some of these innovations which are done, then that publishing becomes far more relevant. And then, you go after the numbers game. So you're caught in the past, and yet you want to innovate. Now, while the regulator may continue to be or, change slowly, what do you do within the institution in order to, how do you get out of the way within the institution?
I think that culture needs to be built, right? And it needs to come right from the top, which is the board level. Okay. The board needs to actually infuse that kind of a thinking right all the way through so that teaching is fun, learning is fun. No one is spying on someone. No one is playing politics on anyone. No one is controlling stuff. Because I'm just kind of going back to my previous experience with IITs and all. There's a lot of inefficiencies, right? Okay. So you have to reimagine what the university of tomorrow is going to be. It has to be pretty digital. It has to be open. I mean, why should someone get like 74 marks versus 73 and the 74 mark person gets employed? I'm just asking these questions. We have to really change. And you say, I'm coming to ICFAI because anyone who goes to ICFAI is great. I'm going to hire the person. That should be basically the benchmark, right? So I think those changes you can do inside. You have enough autonomy because no one is telling you to be rigid. No one is asking you to carry a cane. No one is asking you to play politics. No one is asking you to block people. All those things you can change inside. It's a culture. And I remember in 1996 when I first met Yashaswiji, it was so cool. He had a vision. There was a lot of flexibility. There was a lot of actually interaction with the professionals also. That's what I thought. But then when you scale up, you need to kind of comply to regulations. So you have to basically do whatever is there because those guys are not going to change. And the other big problem with us is we have a 5-year thinking, right? Every time a government is elected, then only something happens. And that too not fully. So we haven't even thought of a 20-year budget cycle for education, 20-year programs. We have not thought of that. But a university can, like you.
Excellent, sir. I think you've given us some leeway there. And I think the critical thing there is culture and what the leadership of the institution drives within that culture. Thank you, sir.
Fantastic. That's a great conversation, sir. I want to thank you very much for your time and expertise in dealing with these questions. Some of them are good, some of them are silly, but some of them are very curious questions. Thank you so much for dealing with all these questions with so much of patience. I want to actually capture the 3-4 points. One is to understand innovation correctly, start creating something very useful to the society to solve problems around you. If not, you're going to solve the problems of the world. I think that's where innovation will begin. It will be made useful to the society and therefore it will work. Second, the societal challenges and the parental support is extremely important. We need to keep that in our mind and we need to slowly beat those things. But there's a lot to be done in terms of the policy changes. I mean, whatever be the status of the policy changes, much more is always required because we are constantly rising and constantly growing. So there's always a comparison between ecosystem 1 versus ecosystem 2 elsewhere. So there's a constant pressure on them as well. But more importantly, I think the critical point that you mentioned during the conversation is that the VCs as well as the seniors who can guide the young startups, we need to focus on thorough evaluation of the personality, of the intellectual honesty, because that's being called out now in certain examples that we have, which are unfortunate. But largely, the system and the examples are encouraging, inspiring, and it is making the youngsters, both in the college and those who have actually hit the road for 15, 20 years, also think about entrepreneurship and do very well. To learn from these things, we need to constantly encourage ourselves because entrepreneurship is like putting steel into the spine of the society. I think we better get it right. And the growth of the company, growth of the country will happen only when more number of entrepreneurs come into the play and we start creating more solutions for the problems around us. And that's how the economy will grow and all of us will have better lives. If that is the purpose we have understood, I think we should be ready to take the challenges in terms of risk and also in terms of shifting our mindsets towards handling these risks. Risks will always be there, and we should lay out for foreseeing that and getting prepared for handling these risks. Through this conversation, we have taken up one more lesson, and that is beyond the lip service of taking the corporate into industry, corporate and industry into academia, and the vice versa. I think we need to begin like real thinkers and like real doers. We need to begin working on certain initiatives, and then only the students will be benefited, and overall the ecosystem will actually start to grow. Thank you so much, sir, for inspiring us. We couldn't have got it better. I want to thank you on behalf of everyone who has joined today. This session we will record, and we will look at it again and again to learn lessons from this. We'll also attempt a summary and share with you. So once you clear it, we'll upload it on the archives. And many members who join us, sometimes some of them miss, but they come back and learn from these sessions which are on the archives. So thank you so much, sir, for a great 194.
Thank you, Dr. Rao, for giving me the opportunity. And I end by saying that no question is a bad question. Keep asking questions.
Great, sir. Thank you so much. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll meet you again next week. Till then, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Some of the border areas we are having a situation. I think we need to be alert. I wish you all the best, and stop looking at the social media. Then there's a lot of peace. Otherwise, wish you all the best in this trying situation. All of you hope will keep safe. Thank you, and see you next week. Have a great weekend and good night.